Welcome to Commercial Real Estate Unfiltered, the podcast that takes the mystery out of commercial real estate and makes it accessible for everyone. I'm Caleb David, a broker, investor, and community builder with over a decade of experience helping businesses and individuals bring their visions to life. Here we break down the market, share expert insights, and talk about the opportunities that commercial real estate creates for businesses and communities alike. No fluff, no gatekeeping, just real, unfiltered conversations that empower you to navigate the space with confidence. So whether you're an investor, a business owner, or simply curious about commercial real estate, welcome. Let's dive in. Welcome everybody back to the Commercial Real Estate Unfiltered podcast. This is your host, Caleb David. Today I'm bringing a guest to you, Daniel Berger. He's the owner and broker of Remax Prestige Properties in White Plains, New York. With over 20 years of experience and an MBA from Hofstra, Daniel has been recognized as a top producing agent and is known for his client-focused approach. He also hosts the Adventures of a Real Estate Broker podcast, where he shares insights and stories from the real estate world. His deep market expertise and dedication to his clients have made him a trusted name in the industry. Welcome to the podcast, Daniel.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be on.
Yeah, it was great being a part of your podcast last week, and just love that we get to share different insights with our different audiences. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about how you get started in the real estate business. You've got 20 years experience, you've seen a lot, but what was kind of the catalyst that kind of opened that door into becoming a real estate broker?
That great question. It's probably more than 20 years in sales and marketing. I've been very involved in beverage, specifically coffee, for a bunch of years. And I then did a foray into the solar world, and the company that I worked for was Sun Edison, was a very large solar company, and they miraculously went bankrupt in a heartbeat because they had outside of our range, but like they were taking really huge financial risks, and I guess it just didn't work out. The job went away. And my wife looked at me and said, what are you going to do when you grow up? And you should be a real estate agent. So it was something that I guess my wife's very interested in real estate, but she figured that I'm good with people and maybe I should try it. It wasn't something that I had really ever thought of myself. But when my wife pushed me in that direction, I was like, yeah, what am I going to do when I grow older? My wife did it, and that's about 9 years ago or so. And it seems as though it's worked out.
That's awesome. For someone who's looking to maybe start in the industry, I know you do some commercial, but primarily residential. But you're in a unique submarket in the suburbs, so I think every little area is different. But what are some of the things that you learned, maybe more specifically to someone who's in a market similar to White Plains? What are some things or some advice you'd give to them if they're looking to get into this industry?
I only know my market, right? I'm licensed in Connecticut and New York, which really it's while I've done some work in New York City, it's really the suburbs, which I feel would translate to most suburbs and even maybe more cities. New York City is a beast of its own and might be different, but ultimately I didn't really learn from anyone. It was really just paying attention to what's going on, understanding what the rules and regulations are, and then working with people. From selling bottled water, where people were like, I don't need water. I don't need bottled water. I get it for free, to selling coffee. I was the original sales manager for the Keurig K cup. People are like, why would I want to spend 50 cents a cup? I can get it for 8 cents a cup. And it's really just working, understanding people's needs and wants, and then really just trying to be a facilitator to help answer people's questions. I think in order to get in, and for me, getting in as an older person in an industry that had people, like titans of the business that have been doing it forever, really big. How do you get into a market that has all those players and find your own niche? For me, it was really, I was going to get people, I wasn't going to have people outwork or outsmart me in this sense. They might have a better Rolodex than me, but they weren't going to out hustle me. So I figured I could hustle really hard and work really hard and try to get that to be why people would want to work with me. So I would work on I've done deals that are 20,000. I've done deals that are 50,000. I've also done deals that are 4 million and 3 million and whatever. So in the beginning, I would do anything because to me, it wasn't the dollar transaction, it was a client. And those clients were happy, would then write great reviews for me. And then I've leveraged really good reviews to go and to get, that's how I get my new clients. I've never door knocked ever. I've never made a cold call. So it's really bootstrapping and then having other people. Today, I just had a closing for a property where I must have shown the people that referred me, it was like a 4 or 5 years and maybe 60 properties. And the one today, their friend I showed one property to. They didn't buy that one, but they went to an open house and told me to buy the next one for them. I wasn't even there. And dollar cost averaging, that really works out well from 60 and to one. I was referred because that person today, they said they were telling their friend, we're having trouble with our agent. We're not really meshing. They don't understand us. I don't know if they're full time. And then they're like, you need to work with our broker. Our broker was awesome. And so that introduction was everything. And now I have another closing with somebody that they'll tell people. So it's the old telephone game. I guess telephone game changes it, but it's really more of you tell someone, then they tell someone, and then it's compounding of clients.
Yeah. So when you got started, when you got started, how long did it take for you to close your first deal?
Not so well, that was the other, I think, when you to get into real estate, you can't really go, you have to go all in. You can't go half in. Part-time isn't. It's certainly real estate's a career where it's a low entry to barrier, a low barrier to entry, right? Anybody can really do it. You just have to pass, you have to do your 75 hours or 80 hours, whatever. Then you take a test, boom, now you're a real estate agent. Anyone can do it, but really to get, you have to be all in. This is, you can't just show on nights or week. You have to always be available. That's at least, and that's how I've done it. I guess if I had a better Rolodex of people that were just $10 million buyers, I'd only need a few of them and I could do it. But that's not the way that I did it. So it's really full time, it's working hard, and then really trying to work with clients. I started really by Zillow, was really where I would invest in Zillow and people would then, I would see buyer leads, right? And then I'd contact the buyer leads and they'd come to me. And then I'm like, oh, I see you want this property. Let's go. And then I learn more about them. Is that the right property? Maybe we would see it, maybe we wouldn't. But then that bootstrapping way of having to go through, not all are good clients or all are ready, willing, and able, but going through that list and finding someone. I would say my first deal was probably like 2 months or 3 months. It's a little different in New York because a lot of the lower ends are more cooperative apartments and those can take more time and there's like a process of putting in an application. I remember within 2 months though I got my first listing and it was and I,
I think you're a little bit paused up right now. Hopefully, this will pass in just a second. There you go.
hey, there
Hey,
we
welcome
are.
back. Welcome
I don't,
back.
was that me? I don't know if that was me or you. I didn't touch anything.
Yeah, I didn't either. So it happens. But well, I appreciate you sharing that insight. And I think there's a lot of things that, because there's that lower barrier of entry, people think that things are just going to fall in their lap. But this is serious work. And like you said, I'm like, you've got to really commit to it. And something that I read between the lines from your past experience in sales and marketing, you took some of the processes and just the basic experience and were able to translate that into what you do now. And so I think I would encourage folks to that are looking to get into this is what experience do you have and how do you envision that translating into you being the most authentic version of yourself so that when you're talking and meeting with people, you can shoot straight. But what are some of the, do you have some challenges in the beginning that you felt like you struggled with a little bit?
I really I it resonates to me of being who you are, right? Don't be who you're not. I think people see through that pretty clear. So I'm like, I wear shorts when I'm doing showings. Once if in the winter, if once you know me, I'm if it I'll it's like I'm always on, I'm always so it's always available. But I've always my real self is not a fancy dressed up guy, but it's somebody who dots I's, cross T's, and will, and on a moment's notice, will go do a showing if that makes sense. So I think the being yourself is so important. I think people can see through things. I think people also can see through, and sometimes in real estate, like people are like, oh, if after showing 10 houses or 12 houses, you haven't bought anything or put in an offer, you I'm gonna fire you. I've never fired anybody. Maybe I should have fired some. I can't. That's just me. The record for me showing a number of properties to a client is 205 showings
Wow.
over a course of 13 months. And
Wow.
people were like, "You're nuts." There was a point that they were going to fire me, and they called another broker. I think we had seen 40 or 50 at the time. They called another broker. The husband did. The wife was like in shock that the husband was doing this. And the broker knew me. And the broker told them, if you haven't found a house by now, it is not Danny's fault. It's your fault.
Hmm.
And to this day, I still remember that. And I thank her for it. But then we went from 40 showings to a lot more because we got to 205. But I ended up, it was like an all cash offer, 1.2 million. They ended up referring. I also sold when their mother passed, I sold their mother's multifamily house for $1 million. They've referred multiple people to me. I'm glad I didn't fire them. I never really was going to because I knew that they were looking. And so they hadn't found the right house for them. And I think the way that I work is that I understand what people's needs and wants are, and I do try to be direct and to try to guide them, but I don't want someone to I don't want the buyers. There's going to be enough buyer's remorse. I don't want their buyer's remorse because someone felt that I pushed them to a certain property. So that's something that you need to do well in the business and have a large enough fund that you're not like check to check, right? Where you desperately need, because that desperation probably people can sense
Yeah.
where you basically need to, if it's not right, then let's not move forward with it. If it is right, it's always like the hurry up and wait, right? Where you waiting and waiting, but now when you found the thing, you need to aggressively put in an offer. The reason why they did 205 houses, they had offers that they put in, and none of the offers were ever really good ones. And they really weren't good because it wasn't really the house that they wanted. And when they found that one house that was the house they wanted, their bidding strategy changed tremendously to one of not just throwing in a bid. It was like, how do we take it down? Because as I say in real estate, it's not like the Olympics where there's a gold, silver, and bronze. Only one person gets the key.
Yeah.
And so you have to win a bid. You have to be the highest bidder. That's what it means in this business.
Yeah, and it sounds to me like that there's a huge amount of importance on asking your client the right questions and being able to sense what are the priorities. So, what are some of the questions that maybe you help to guide your clients when they're either buying or selling?
Great question. You're questioning the questioner, so I like that. Some people do a more formal, they bring their clients in, they do an onboarding, they do a debrief. I don't really do that. I'm almost never in my office, although I do pay for an office because that's part of my franchise agreement. It's more of let's, yes, it will be through a phone call. I ask them those questions, but most of what I learn is from going on showings with my clients. So it's probably like 3 to 5 showings before you even really understand what they're about. And a lot of times they don't know what they're about. I have some people that are like, I hate splits. And I'm like, and why are we still seeing splits? And so again, you can't have everything you want. You can have many things you want in a house. And it's all about give and take, right? Where if money's no object, it's a lot different. But in most cases, most of my clients, money is a bit of an object. And so we have to pick and choose. So while somebody might come with what a parameter is, when you peel back the onion a little bit, maybe you uncover that it's really not that important. They thought it was important, but this is important. Maybe it's a school district, maybe it's land, maybe it's a swimming pool, but like when you see on TV, and I love watching the different shows on television about real estate, but they're like much more into walking through the house, guiding about the architecture and the crown molding. I find that's the least of what I do. It's the absolute least of what I do. And people are like, real estate agents, all they do is they open doors. Opening the door to the house is a part of our job, but if it was just that, you could have a robot do it. You could have a really junior person do it. That's the least. It's walking through the house and understanding what is this house what is it now? And also having the ability to see what are things that are going to need work down the road, right? Because you don't just buy the house for the purchase price, you're buying it also for all the other things that it's going to need or not need. And that's how when you're trying to do apples to apples. And so you have to say, this house doesn't need any, so this is its real cost. And this house needs a lot. So let's add that to it because those are the things that you're going to need to do as well. The more that I'm thinking ahead and proactively in the things that will make sense for my clients, those are the things that generally my clients are like, oh, Danny knows what he's talking about. He's not rushing us and he's looking out for our best interests. So I think that's what buyers today are looking for.
Yeah, and I think that's something that builds that brand loyalty that you've been able to build over the years is that you aren't pushing, you aren't desperate, because I think you're exactly right. The desperation can be felt. And how important are setting clear expectations up front in your day to day?
Well, first I want to say is what's interesting is you're more on the commercial side, I'm more on the residential side. And so far, our conversation hasn't even needed to talk about that because really what you do and what I do translates to each other's because it's a people business, right? Following up, finding out expectations, understanding what parameters are, and then guiding people into those things. That's really selling. We're dealing in real estate, but this could be in a lot of other businesses as well.
Yeah.
So I wanted to sneak that in. Expectations, I could sit people down, whether it's on the phone call or in person, and hammer them. But that would be like what's best for me, right? That's selfishly me saying, I guide this and I'm in charge and this is what we're going to do and blah, blah. And I really try to make it seem like we're a team. We've talked about before, but I like to be the quarterback of this transaction. So times that we're going to need the legal advice, we bring our store lawyer in. When we need a lender, we bring so my job is to bring the team together. So it's, I guess, quarterback and GM because I'm putting the team together, but I'm not doing the law work. I'm not doing the mortgage. I'm not doing the title work, right? So I bring all of those people in to help us. But I would say that I let things happen. A lot of people understand it, but as things develop, I do have some clients where maybe it's taking a longer time or they're not necessarily being on par for what they want. So then I do have to bring them home. And I feel that as I earn the respect of who I am, I'm able to say more and to guide them. And again, it's not what I want, it's what they want. So if someone's looking for a rental in a certain community because they need the school, and then we're not bidding properly, then I'm like, we're never going to get something if this is our strategy. We need to see things quickly. And then I have to be creative of how do you craft an offer that makes sense based off of this person's their budget and their credit scores and their income and what else can I do to make it look better. So I don't hand out I don't have sheets of this is your responsibility as a buyer, this is yours as a seller. I really don't do that. Where I guess it might be easier if I just handed people, here's your buyer's packet, here's your seller's packet. It's more of me as the process is going. I make sure that I communicate.
And it feels
What
more
I
tailor-made and more personal.
It's 100% tailor made and personal because I adapt it right to each and every case. And I feel that my clients do feel that I am more hands on. So it does take more time, right? Because it would be clearly easier for me just to say, here's the list and go read the list. And if you veer from the list, then I'm going to slap you on your hand. I don't do any of that. But I also, interesting about my business, last year I did 65 transactions myself. I have no admin. I don't have showers. I do it, right? People sometimes talk about like scaling, and I don't think scaling for the sake of scaling is a good thing. I feel that 65 transactions, $42 million in sales just for me last year, that's enough. And so, how would I scale? I could scale by having people that have more money and need bigger places or sell bigger. But ultimately, I wouldn't know that because if someone contacts me or if it's a referral and they need to sell something that's 150,000, I'm going to do it. Right. Because I'm always going to work with people because I don't know those people know people. And from 8 or 9 years of doing this, people that you least expect it have brothers and cousins and other things and situations change. And so if you just treat people like people, to me, that's been a good recipe for building a business.
Yeah, I think what you're speaking to is a little bit of being self-aware, but also present and aware of what your clients are telling you. And so it's this ongoing thing. And it's not just opening doors and turning on lights because you have to the market. You know what will be accepted, what won't, what's our best foot forward. And I think helping people and guide them through that, and also having the expertise to know when and how to pivot in, because it can be a very fast moving, it can be very slow sometimes, but it can also be a very fast paced environment. So I think definitely have to have your head in the game, and like you said, have the team around you so that when you need that different expertise that you don't have, that you've got it right there and you're able to move quickly. That comes down to relationship and the other person picking up your phone call and being able to help.
Yeah, so pivoting, I think, is crucial, right? Where every day's a pivot, right? Where you start out this way, you're in your car, someone picks up the phone, oh my God, this just came on the market, I need to see it. And you need to, how do we make that happen? And I do a lot of, I should probably do a little less texting and driving, but, or pull over to the side of the road. But there are things that need to be done right away. And so sometimes it does need to be right away, sometimes it doesn't. But the flexibility is certainly the key. And what's also interesting is I could pivot, I can know the market, and I could potentially, might know what it takes to win a house, but maybe it's over the threshold of what makes sense to my clients. I
Right.
always say that it's important to know what your pain point is. And your pain point is the highest amount of money for you to buy something where if somebody goes a dollar over that, you're not going to be upset because you're like, that's not a number I could ever have. You might be disappointed that you didn't get a house, but you won't be upset. The worst is when you find out after that something sold for 900 and you would have gone to 925 and you didn't get the chance to get there. That's the worst. So clients need to know, I don't want them bidding at their pain point, but we have to, and you bid something that makes sense, but what is the pain point that you would not want to lose it? Because that's a number that I need to know so that if I don't get an accepted offer, you can still keep bidding, because in New York, you're not in contract right away, at least in my part, but you keep that lines of communication. So I never want my clients to overbid, but you clearly have to be the best bid if you want to be accepted. You have to have the best overall bid. It's not always the most money, but your bid has to be one that stands up from all the others, thus you get picked.
Yeah, 100%. I know obviously the residential market affects the commercial market, and I know you've done some commercial deals as well. But in how does that residential sector kind of influence the commercial real estate market, especially in the more of a suburban type town like White Plains?
So White Plains is where my office is, but it's really, what's interesting is I think back in the day, you were more town specific. It's county specific and multiple counties, because sometimes people will come in and they'll start in White Plains. And then as we discuss what's important to them and what their price point is, we expand to a larger area that makes sense for their budget. Because obviously, generally, the closer to New York City, the more expensive. So when you actually feel like, oh, if these things are more important and you don't mind driving an extra 30 minutes or 45 or whatever, we can get more house and more land and whatever. Some people, that's what they want. Some people don't want that. Generally, so the commercial that I've done are generally people that I've met through the residential world, where they're like, they own a building and they have another unit that they want. I actually did in my own building. My landlord's like, you're a great tenant, let's work together. Generally, the commercial world, what's happening more in the economy probably affects rents and space, and much more than people still need housing in our market. And so it's still a seller's market by a lot. It's probably more of a buyer's market or a tenant market in the commercial sector. Work from home was a thing where people were buying properties like sight unseen because they wanted to get out of the city. But work from home would lead to more of a depressed commercial market, except now that we're seeing that work from home is less, it's used but less than it was before. Now people might have to go in 2 days a week, 3 days a week. So generally, not at more jobs are that you have to go in at some point. So that's maybe moved more pressure in the residential market closer to the city now. It's back to being harder. When during the COVID, those days people could go an hour away because they're like, oh, I'm not going into the city. What does it matter? And commercial is doing a slight bounce back in the sense that Now that people have to go to offices more, the office market is becoming a little bit more valuable. I would say that in our area, it's even happening in the city, is a lot of those commercial spaces that were vacant are now people are looking to switching them into condo and townhouse units. An example, I have a client right now. It's a little bit, it's Beacon, New York. It's this kind of trendy area about an hour from me, north of me, and we're bidding on an old firehouse. The city is selling two firehouses, and we're looking at buying one of the firehouses. And my client's going to renovate the downstairs for a restaurant, and we're going to do maybe 6 units or something upstairs. That is basically the town understanding that housing is there's a shortage of housing. And why our offer was compelling was because the city wants to activate downtown more, right? Where you can have a restaurant that's not going to just be 9 to 5, but it will be up until 10, 11 o'clock and try to get people down there. That's that's a little bit of a trend that I've been seeing.
Yeah, and I would say that's something we're seeing as well. But I think, what oftentimes people coming into real estate for the first time don't realize how much they actually do need to, especially on the commercial side, interact and understand the local government, the local chambers and EDC. Are they making those changes and incentives to bring businesses back in? Like, for example, the city of Colorado Springs, where I do most of my work, are phenomenal at this. But you go 10, 15 minutes south to a town named Fountain, they don't want growth. They don't want stuff to sell. They don't want the tax revenue. And it drives me nuts. I've got 3 or 4 listings there right now that have been on the market for years because you're dealing with a government entity that isn't truly using property at its highest and best use. So it can be very frustrating, I think, especially for sellers. But you shared a couple of stories that showing 205 houses. I'm sure you've had more adventures, such as the fire department building. But so, what inspired you to start your podcast, The Adventures of Real Estate?
So I always talked about like writing a book. So I've actually written the book. It's 13 chapters. My son's just graduated from school, and his girlfriend also graduated from university, and she wants to be a writer, and she didn't have a job last summer. And I'm like, okay, why don't we do an as told to, where and then we'll both write it together. So we're like, great. So we did that. I then had an editor come in, and it's edited, but my wife, who's an attorney, won't allow won't let me publish until she has the last crack. She's a very good writer, so I'm okay. I'm okay in the sense that I know it's going to be better, but I'm like, let's go. She's been very busy. So I started with this book idea just because of these crazy stories that we've had. I've walked into houses that had dead animals in it, 20 guns, pornography, skulls, actual like dismembered skulls. And so it's just been a lot of interesting stories that I just want to have, not like a book of me telling people how to be a real, that's a little pretentious for me, but telling them interesting, funny stories that have happened along the way. That's something that I find can be interesting. And so as I was doing the book, we I've been on a couple of podcasts, and I'm like, it wouldn't be bad. And I probably use it more for marketing, right? So it's the idea that I have it, that people can listen to it. I do get to meet great people like yourselves. And so I have done referrals and connections. So because as you get to meet people, you're like, oh, Caleb's a good guy. I have things in Colorado Springs. I'm going to call you, and then you'll either connect me, or you'll either do it, or you'll connect me. So I find that's been interesting. And again, it's not me basically saying this is how you have to do it. It's just bringing interesting people on. And this is the way that people read a lot less now. And YouTube and all the ways that you can watch a podcast is something that's a little bit more important. So I figured it was not bad from a brand standpoint. And obviously, I try to bring people on that make sense, that we can have good conversations, so that it is something that makes sense. The name of the podcast in the book was supposed to be, and I changed from this. One of my clients was a tenant. I got the tenant into the place. The seller then had to sell the property. He needed it. Like there might have been some tax things, whatever. He had to sell. And the woman was not the healthiest. It might have been a little unhinged, and she was mad that he was selling and didn't think that she was selling, and came up with a story of like, it's we were fictitiously putting the house on the market. only to evict her. We were evicting her because if you look at court records, whatever. So she must have left 13 to 15 voicemails in a row for me, where she was really complaining about the owner, not necessarily about me. But on one of the voicemails she left, she started out the last voicemail, and I still have this saved. And this was going to be the title. In a really raspy voice, she says, "And another thing, fatso." So that's how she started the phone call. So I was going to do my podcast in the book, and another thing, fatso, like funny, the adventures of a real estate broker, but it's too hard to explain that.
Yeah.
So you're like, "Well, fatso." I have been heavier. I'm on Ozempic, Wegovy, Zepbound, or whatever. One of my clients actually put me onto that. So
Yeah.
that's definitely a name of one of my chapters, but not necessarily the name of the book.
Love it. I
So
love it. That's so fun. And I agree with you. It's a great way to meet people and connect. And the way that people digest information is very different than it used to be. So I think in being in real estate, it's important for us to be able to adjust to what the market and what's happening. We're getting close to the end. I feel like we could talk for a long time, and we talked last week, but what are some common mistakes do you find that real estate professionals make when they are building those long-term relationships or trying to build those? What are some of the mistakes that you've seen maybe in younger brokers or people that are newer that would help others who are interested in listening avoid?
probably not following up as much, probably following up after the sale, because you don't, client should be a lifelong client, not a transaction. So I do things of gift giving. So I've decided that around Thanksgiving, I thought it would be good to not get religious on anything, but Thanksgiving to me is a time that we're in America. We're thankful for being Americans. We're living in America. And so I've always tried to show my gratitude around Thanksgiving. In the beginning, I would do pies, and not just an apple. I would let people choose what pie, right? So that I had to have them order like, did you want a pecan pie, a blueberry pie, a pumpkin pie, or an apple pie? And then I would deliver them. So I did that for I think 2 years, and then it was hard to deliver 150 pies in a certain period of time around Thanksgiving. I had other people help me deliver the pies, so I only could do a
That's Santa
third of the
Claus.
pies. So we did that. Then I did things with I liked it around food, and I did the Gold Belly is this mail order catalog that you can get cool things. So I did a pie that way where I'm like, here's a gift card that you can get this pie delivered, but you can also get other stuff. Last year was, I think, my best is I came up with a really nice throw blanket that says Remax on it, and has my on the bottom part has a leather thing that got sewn into the rug, the throw rug, and the blanket. And what was good about it was it had my phone number, whatever, but I was getting people that would show me that they wrapped their kids in it, sent me pictures. They had their animals, so I had a lot of pictures of dogs and cats on the blanket, and was able to promote that. But that was something that blanket retail would have been like $140. And so I think I bought like 250 blankets, right? So I would ask people who wants the gift. And when they said yes, then I sent them the link, and they were able to go to a Google Doc and put in their address, and then it got shipped to their house.
Right.
So it only went to people that wanted it. You know, they knew what it was, and not everyone wanted it, but 200 and something people did. And so that's expensive. That was like 15. I got a little bit of a discount because I bought so much, but I invested $15,000 in thanking people,
Mhm.
right? So it's not about me. It was a gift that they liked, but you can't necessarily be cheap. But those are the people that then my name and Remax stay in top of people's minds. And every year I want to keep doing stuff because I know that, all the transactions now that I'm probably close to 700 clients, something like that. They all don't engage. Some of them choose not to, or they move away, or they pass, whatever. But it's a decent list of people that I've helped. And again, I am thankful for their business. That's true. And so I like that I'm able to thank people. It's about them, and they appreciate it. So
Yeah.
that's one thing that I would say people don't that anyone, but where you leave after your transaction's over, it's over and that's it. And that's probably the biggest mistake that people would make.
That's a great point. I really appreciate that. So tell us a little bit, Danny, where can people find you? Online, socials, podcast?
Sure. The Adventures of a Real Estate Broker with Daniel Berger is certainly how you can check out any of the podcasts. We will have the book at some point. That's probably more of Daniel M. Berger from LinkedIn. We'll probably have attachments. I'm not ready for the book yet. Hopefully, we'll have it in the next couple of months that we'll have it out. And then generally, Daniel M. Berger, I think if you just put it real estate, probably comes up with one of my websites. But it's more looking me up and then calling me, and I'll pick up, and I'm going to pick up the phone and we'll talk. I'm not going to have an AI person. I'm not going to have someone in another country pick up. I'll be the person. I tell my clients they can text and call me 24/7. I'm probably going to answer 18/7. I'm suburbs of New York, also in Connecticut. And I help buyers, I help sellers. I don't really send you to other people. I'm the person that does it because I like selling. I am a broker. So I do have brokers in my office where it's my job to guide and mentor them. And sometimes I'll work with them on some of the deals, but for the most part, I'm helping them run their business. And then I run my own business as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your time today. I'm sure that our listeners are going to get some good insights out of this, and I look forward to next time that we can talk. Thanks for joining.
Thank you very much, Caleb. It was my pleasure to be on the show.
That's a wrap on this episode of Commercial Real Estate Unfiltered. I hope you found value in today's conversation and feel more confident about navigating the world of commercial real estate. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with somebody who could benefit from these insights. You can connect with me, Caleb David, and the team at David Commercial Real Estate. Just check the show notes for more information. Thanks for listening, and remember, creating space is more than just real estate. It's about building community. See you next time.